And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to your RBLR Rays podcast, or I guess Rays show. My name is Ben. With me is Zach. How's it going today, Zach?
It is going well. I am just sort of enjoying all of the baseball that is happening right now. We're getting it from so many different angles. A little college baseball, a little WBC awesomeness, spring training. It's a good time to be a baseball fan right now.
Oh yeah, definitely. The early games are kind of over at this point, but like being able to wake up and like turn on a baseball game while I'm getting ready for work, like that's fun. Like I love that. It's amazing. So we can definitely jump right into the WBC stuff. I know there's a lot to talk about there between Randy and some injury stuff that doesn't really affect the Rays, but how about Randy Arozarena? Like what can we say that hasn't been said?
I mean, the thing that always gets me about him is how he is just so relaxed in those. You know what it made me think of? Because there's a great video of him after he hit that like bases clearing double. In the next inning during a pitching change, he's literally leaning up against the wall in the outfield, signing autographs, just like so relaxed. It reminded me of a video from like circa 2012 when like Miguel Cabrera was at like the height of his powers, and he's like waiting in the on deck circle, like shaking hands with fans because he's like just completely relaxed. There's zero stress, and it feels like that's where Randy is right now, where he just is in his element. He letting the game come to him, even on that bases clearing double. Like he wasn't trying to like do too much, or he literally was letting the pitches come to him and he just slapped it, down the third baseline. Like that's, he is when he is relaxed and he is like letting the game come to him, like he is on a different level where we're talking like he can be like, he's a top 10 player in baseball when he is at that level of like completely relaxed and locked into the game like that. I mean, he does everything that you could ever want out of a baseball player.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, something I noticed last year was his production and his swing rate kind of were like inversely related. So the less he swung, the more selective he was, the more productive he was. I wish I would have pulled up numbers for his postseason runs and all that stuff. But if you just pull up his rolling averages on Fangraphs, I wish I had that ready. Otherwise, I'd show that. But it's really interesting because he's at his best when he's just patient, taking his time, like you said, letting the game come to him. And he's doing that right now. And I know it's an extremely, extremely small sample, but he's been phenomenal kind of as the catalyst for that Mexico team, which is very good, by the way. And I think they play tonight against Puerto Rico, if I'm correct.
They do play tonight. I think it's Luis Urias pitching for Mexico, and for Puerto Rico, Marcus Stroman. So good pitching matchup. It's going to be, I'm on Mexico to win that game, not just because of Randy. I think Urias is so good, and that's going to be a great game. But it's just been I have just really been enjoying the passion with which these games are played. I mean, Randy is also obviously a huge part of that, but like watching all of these teams, who clearly care so much. There's a great video that somebody posted on Twitter of an interview with a bunch of players from the Dominican Republic who were asked whether it would mean more to them to win the WBC or the World Series, and all of them said either WBC or like equal, like World Series WBC is equal. So like that is how much it means to these players. I think in the USA, because we have so many of our stars who are not playing, we kind of undervalue the WBC, but like it means so much to so many of these countries.
Yeah, I mean it's the World Cup of baseball. Like there's that's the ultimate thing. Like in soccer, like yeah, you want to win like tournaments in your club, you want to win titles, whatever. But like winning the World Cup that's the thing. So in baseball, it's if baseball is the sport of whatever country a given person is in, like that's their thing. Like that's the peak. So. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be amazing because it's more rare than winning a World Series. Like it's once every 6 years, I believe.
I think they're getting it to 4 now.
Okay, 4. I don't know the exact. I just know it's amazing. I love it. I love the World Cup. So it's really fun. But there's also been some, I guess, negativity around the WBC. It's really crazy because I feel like a lot of the people that are perpetuating that negativity have I don't know how to say this nicely, but it's a very like narrow scope of how things work in the world. Like it's a very like American centric view where it's like the you play a game because it's a game. It's fun. It's not about like the money. Like obviously injuries suck and that's going to happen, but it's about the fun. It's about passion. It's about like just trying to win that and reach that peak of being a literal world champion. Because I know we have the World Series in America, but that's like the American series. Like it's not a world series. Kind of like the WBC is a World Series.
Yeah, and it is. And the truth is that most of the negativity is coming from one very specific fan base who are very upset, understandably so, losing their closer. I mean, like if you like, I try to take it, as much as I think they're completely ridiculous. I also think like, well, if Pete walks out there or if Jason Adam, did the exact same thing, I would be upset. But like some of the stuff that they're saying about it, like literally not mattering at all, and they should cancel it. Like I saw one tweet of like, there's a picture of the Mets owner Steve Cohen there, and one of the Barstool guys was try to get him to cancel the whole thing. I'm like, come on, guys! Like, this is you're so narrow minded. And I understand like there's a level of like fandom that you care so much about your team that you get blinded a little bit, but you can't be that blinded, man. And like I think I'm lucky because I've lived overseas before, so I've seen kind of I've seen like a world view of things from a sports perspective and a life perspective as well, to see the way that especially other countries, even, I mean, in America, there's a lot of national pride too, but it's just, there's some countries like the way the national pride exists throughout the country is just a little bit different. And you can see that on display. Like, I think I saw that 60% of households in Puerto Rico were watching the WBC, which is like insane. Like, I don't even want to know what like that number. If 60% of America was watching one event, like that would be like, break every single record ever exist in existence. And I think people are underestimating, when you look at Samurai Japan and how present that is, the comparison for that to me is that Shohei has done interviews before where he's literally said that all the media attention he gets in America is nothing compared to what he gets in Japan when he goes over there. Like, it just means more over there. And to suggest that, it's not that big of a deal, it's just a glorified, moment to just do whatever, it's just not true, man. It's just it's beautiful. It's the game to me at its like highest, because you get all these people that care so much. Like, it just means more.
Yeah, definitely. It's so exciting, and I'm really excited to continue watching. Hopefully Randy keeps it up. Paredes has been pretty good over in Mexico too. Ronda, not too much playing time. I know Bethancourt, relatively short stay in the WBC. He's coming back. I think he'll be back tomorrow to play. Wander, Mejia. Yeah, they're going to start trickling back. We also have some guys like trickling back from injury, like Taylor Walls made his spring training debut this week. Calvin Fauché did as well. He got hit around a little bit today, but he was pretty sharp. Like, his stuff is looking really good. So there were also cuts made. Like, I know Mead was essentially like, I mean, it's not like cut from the team. It's like they start, moving guys to the minor league camp. So like Mead, Bradley, Elvin Rodriguez. It doesn't mean they're not going to make the opening day roster, but it's more likely that they begin the season in the minors, which is understandable. So,
yeah, it is. I also think that they want to set expectations for those players, but they probably also want to make sure they're getting consistent at bats and everything. Where spring training, there's so much mixing around of at bats. You put them down in the Durham training, and you kind of have the opportunity to get them consistent at bats, which is probably what you want. So without having to sacrifice the at bats for the other players who you want to see because if you put a guy like Manzardo and he goes back to Double A, the level of competition he's going to see goes down significantly. But if you put Taj Bradley and Mead down in Triple A, the level of competition goes down, but it's not as severe because you're getting other guys who are at that level who are also in training and doing those sort of things. So it kind of makes sense. But I'm curious to see. It's very interesting seeing how they're treating Mead and like what, because we've heard the extension talk and then seeing him consent. Now I'm just very curious to see how that continues to develop. I don't. It's kind of tough. I've been trying to figure it out, and I'm not sure exactly what their plan is, but it's an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, it's going to come down to whatever the language in the contract ends up being. Like, he's either the contract is going to say you're coming up in July, or the contract is going to say your service time starts now pack your stuff, you're going to St. Pete. So
Yep.
I don't think we're going to get like a wishy-washy thing or anything like that. So if they get the contract done in time, great. If not, I mean, the talks are going to be ongoing. So
Sure.
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna like, bank on him getting that contract and starting on the opening day roster, but if it happens, it happens. If not, it's not like it's necessary for him to start on the opening day roster. Like the team isn't going to be like at a deficit. They have a lot of corner infielders, a lot of DH types, plenty of right-handed bats. So, I mean, if they move somebody, it kind of opens up a spot, and maybe that helps the contract talk speed up, or maybe it just gets him on the roster. Who knows? Yeah, we just have to hurry up and wait. I guess that's kind of what it is this time of the year.
Yeah, and we kind of discussed before that, like, if there's a decent chance that Harold starts the season on the team, but like, especially if Mead doesn't come at the beginning of the year, to me, it's like, well, as soon as Harold has a cold streak or Mead has a really hot streak, that switch gets flipped and he's up. I think that's a very likely scenario, unless there's some language in the contract that stipulates he starts the year in the majors.
I mean, Harold's been in a cold streak since he got back from his broken hand, so it's been months. His really not good spring, like not even like a small sample type thing. He's just not looking like himself. He's not looking good. So, yeah, I've got some feelings about Harold, but it's fine. We can table that for another day, I guess. We've got some actually a lot of listener questions here, a bunch from Twitter, a couple from Reddit, so really good responses, so we can move into that here. First one, Zach Blaine gets priority because he's with RBLR. If you want priority, join us, buy a shirt. I don't know. But yeah, thank you all for sending these questions in. So we'll get started here. Zach wants to know, do you think we'll trade from our starting pitching depth for, from guys who don't end up making the opening day roster? So like, let's say, we got to leave off a couple starters, a couple like bulk options. Do you think those kinds of guys might get traded early on in the season, or maybe even before?
I mean, it's definitely possible. Again, I think it's kind of what's the right deal. I would say if we're going to trade from starting pitching depth, that's something that, even though it's depth, it's still something you want to have access to, because you're probably going to need it at some point during the season, whether it's just somebody needing a day off or, somebody getting injured. So to me, like, it's a position of strength to trade from if there's if someone's, if there's a really great deal out there and someone's trying to move a player of significant, value. But, there's not a whole lot of like, there's a lot of spots that are, that could be open for like a really high quality player, but like there's not that many that are open for just kind of a mid-level major league talent. Like a lot of those positions that are on the Rays are filled by guys who are of that talent level. So it would have to be a significant upgrade to warrant, somebody coming from the outside at this point to like, replace someone and then to take that spot. So for that to happen, it would have to be a significant upgrade, in which case I could see them doing that, but I don't really feel like it doesn't really feel like their plan right now. Like not that, things can't happen without us hearing anything about it, but they seem really locked in on this group. The continuity has been thrown around so many times. It seems like they're kind of locked in on this group. So it's not impossible. And I think if the right deal came across, Eric Neander's desk, he would take it, but I don't anticipate it.
No, I mean, the talks are always ongoing. Like, we know that. The three that really could be like traded would be like the guys battling for that fifth spot. I mean, anybody could get traded, but they're more likely. So it'd be like Patino, Yanni, Fleming, like someone from that group. And like, none of those guys is really going to get you like anything that significant, like by themselves. So you need like 7-8 starters like to last the course of a season. So there's no need to trade. I mean, they could, but I don't think they will, especially if, with Glass now already injured, you lose one more starter and then you need, Yanni, Fleming, and Patino. Right. So like we're one injury away from not having enough depth. So I don't think they trade it. Yeah, not worth it. And you're not really going to get anything unless you're trading like from the Rasmussen, Eflin, Springs group of the bunch. And like, you don't want to trade those guys. They're all really good. So nobody wants your scraps. And yeah, I mean, these guys are battling for a fifth starter spot for a reason. So it's going to be, yeah, I don't think we trade anybody.
Yeah. And
from
I think
the starting pitching side.
No, I agree. And I think if you were going to trade someone, you'd have to package it with a prospect who you want to see at the major league level. Like you're packaging it with a Caminero, a Kyle Manzardo, a Mead, someone to get a MLB ready power bat. And I don't think the Rays really want to do that right now. Like I don't feel like that there's not really a need to. There's not that big of a gap. I mean, there's been in spring training, we've seen guys like Josh Lowe, Mead that play really well, Nuke Raley. We've seen guys play well and that can fulfill those kinds of roles. So it doesn't really feel like it's, I think we could reassess at the, the All-Star break, but right now it doesn't seem necessary.
No, they don't really need a bat. Like Josh Lowe has been phenomenal. I think he's kind of in that he's going to make the opening day roster. I'm very confident about that. Manuel Margot, everyday player. Potential to be an everyday player. I'm sure they'll platoon him a bit. Luke Raley had another lefty on lefty home run today. Like it's spring training, small sample, blah blah blah. The numbers that are like going on under the hood and in StatCast, like they're showing that the Rays have all the pieces they need right now. It's just a matter of them performing, and we'll see if that happens as the season goes on. And then, like you said, maybe they'll reassess. But that kind of leads into this next question that we have from Twitter user Ben Bath Beyond. He's asking. Wrong order. Next is Twitter user Bent Connor. He asked about the crowded infield. So we do have starting pitching depth. I don't think we move it. But what about the infield depth? Because we do have quite a bit of that. So do you think somebody gets moved from there, or what's the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that is possible, because at some point you have to kind of make, when you have all these guys that are all major league ready, you kind of have to make a decision. And I think there are teams out there that could use MLB ready middle infield depth. And we could find like we've talked about before, like find a lottery pick out there that we like the look of, and send Brujan off or Walls off. Or I don't think Walls leaves, but I think Brujan could go. I mean, I don't think Aranda is like, if he can't figure it out, defensively, like there's plenty of teams who could use a really good hitting DH. That can hit well, consistently and play first base if they don't have a legit first baseman. Like he's someone that could get, that might have some value right now because he's been hitting so well. Like there could be some value there. So I actually think that there's a pretty good chance somebody from that we have kind of in the mix right now will not end up on the opening day, like, in the organization on opening day.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's more likely they trade from the infield than from the arms for sure. But even that, I don't really expect it to happen. Like they all have options except for Luke Raley, but he's kind of like in a good position to make the opening day roster as like that first base, corner outfield, like fourth, fifth outfielder type DH. And he's a lefty too, which is, they do kind of need to keep the lefties they got unless they go out and get like a big name, but that's not going to happen. They don't really want to do that. And they're going to be overplays. So I think everything is going to pretty much stay the same. Like I think the at-bats are going to get spread around a lot. There's a lot of depth, so there's going to be a good mix of playing time, but you need that depth for a full 162 game season like we saw last year with, guys in and out of the lineup with injuries, childbirth stuff. Like life happens, so you gotta hold on to your talent. I think if, Brujan was supposed to be out of options, but he got a fourth option year. So that kind of extended his clock with the Rays a little bit. But I think maybe later on this season with, another massive 40-man crunch that's going to happen in the following offseason, I think maybe that's a possibility. But right now, just roll with what you got. I don't really expect anything to happen, but the Rays are always talking to other teams. So they're talking. The phone calls are going on, emails, texts, whatever, but I don't expect anything to really happen on that front.
Yeah, I think it's not likely. I just think it's possible because I think, when you look at, when you're speaking about depth again, from a starting pitching perspective, I think it's harder to replace in your system quality starting pitching depth than it is to replace a middle infield depth, if that makes any sense. Like I think when you look at the Rays farm system, you have that going down. Whereas when you look from a starting pitching perspective, like there are some guys, but they take a lot longer to develop, in my opinion. Like pitching can take a long time to develop properly to where you're going to perform at a good level at a major league level. Whereas from a hitting and fielding perspective, you can move up a little bit faster. So if you need to, you can, if you move off of some of these guys that are in the sort of in that middle infield cloud, if you move off of some of them, you could move some people up quicker. And maybe that's also my thinking as far as like them moving off of guys, is they may have guys that are ready to kind of move up in the system, and they do have to have spots at Durham too. So I think that also could factor into it. But it's also just as likely that nothing happens and what you're saying comes true. But I think there's at least a decent chance that it could happen based on all those factors.
Yeah, I mean they're certainly talking about it. So that again kind of flows into this next one now from Twitter user Ben Bath Beyond. He wants to know about Taylor Walls. He likes his new swing, which I like the adjustment. But yeah, he was asking, does Walls get enough reps with how crowded the infield is? Like, where does he kind of fit into the roster? Because he seems like, a pretty relatively safe bet to make the opening day roster. Like, if Wander can't play, Walls is the next up MLB ready shortstop, whether we like it or not. Like, there is currently not another player in the organization who could defensively play shortstop every day and, bat eighth or ninth. So, where do you think Walls gets at bats? Where does he fit in?
I mean, I think that there's a couple roles he plays with the team. I mean, obviously the backup shortstop, I think he's got that on lock for now, to be honest. But I also think he has value as a, late inning, defensive replacement, as we're getting into games where hopefully the starters have pitched well and we've got some offense at the beginning of the game and we are looking to just lock it down for the bullpen. I think that, infield defense was surprisingly not that good last year for the Rays. Like, we had some tough games last year. So I think that is something that the Rays are aware of, and they don't want that to happen again. They want to get back to playing good defense. And some of that was necessity because of the players that were injured and all of that. 100%. But I think they would like to continue to play, better infield defense. And I think Walls is a big part of that. I think you'll see some games at third. I think you'll see some games at shortstop. He may, wander over to second every once in a while, but I think he's going to get consistent at bats because, if he can have an OPS that starts with like a 7, he's probably a 3-WAR player. So like they're going to figure out a way to get him into the lineup at some point.
Yeah, I mean, he can, play pretty much anywhere in the infield. He's not going to touch first base, but switch hitter, you can match up a lot of different ways. Great late game defensive replacement, excellent pinch running replacement. He's like in like sprint speed for the first like 25 feet. They have like splits on Savant now. It's really cool. He's like the top, like the 5th most explosive like runner in baseball. Like, he's a great athlete. Like, and he's going to fit well in this in the new run environment with the shift band. Like, he's very rangy. That's his strong suit. He'll definitely get more consistent with the arm. I feel pretty confident about that. So yeah, I mean, he has a lot of value. He'll get at bats. He'll get into games one way or another. And I really like this swing change too. I think that's going to make a little bit of a difference in catching up to velocity. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what he does this season, because he's definitely, set up to be a pretty good bounce back candidate with all things considered.
Yeah, I think so too. And, I think it's one of those, I have a couple of players that I'm like looking at this year that I'm like, if they're playing really well, then we're going to have a really good season. There's a couple of benchmark plays where if we're getting good production out of these guys, I know we're getting the production from our sort of the guys that we all have circled on the lineup as our top guys. But if we can continue to get good production from these guys at the edges of the margins of the roster, we're really going to be set up for a good season.
Yeah, definitely. The margins are key. And again, I segued all these questions perfectly, lined them up exactly how I wanted to. From Twitter user, It's Foof King. He asked, who makes the All-Star game? So I want you to give me one safe pick and then one margins of the roster pick who could, show out and make the All-Star game this season.
My safe pick is going to be Randy. I think that's like one of the safest picks. I think he's a pretty safe pick. My unsafe pick is going to be Isak Paredes. I think he could have if he gets on a hot streak and has a power surge to start the year and he's hitting 20 bombs by the All-Star break, like that could be, first of all, that'd be super fun. But I think everybody loves, somebody who's just hitting, and when he gets into, he can get into one too. So that he could be fun to watch. So I think he's my sleeper All-Star.
Yeah, I think Paredes would be a nice like sleeper pick for that. I definitely say Randy as well, just because of the World Baseball Classic right now. Like the All-Star Game is a popularity contest. Like
Mm,
he's really popular right now. So, but I won't take that. I'll go with like McClanahan. Like I feel like that's a pretty safe answer.
yeah.
And then my not safe pick. Give me Christian Bethencourt. Why
Mm,
not? I think he gets the bulk of the playing time. I think he'll get, you know, enough recognition. Like, he's kind of been around a little bit. Atlanta
mhm,
fans might vote for him. They know who he is. Uh, Oakland fans might vote for him. I feel like he's kind of got like a little bit of a fan base in a couple places. Maybe. I
mhm.
don't know. Maybe it's a very small fan base just because I'm biased. But yeah, maybe Bethencourt. Who
Did
knows?
play well in the WBC, so that's a bump
Yeah,
too. If you're
yeah,
talking about popularity, he had a good WBC, so I think that's a good pick too.
yeah.
I like that.
We just need Panama to stuff the ballot box, I guess, for Bethencourt. Maybe that'll happen.
Stuff the box with
Next
Bethencourt.
up, yes, we'll make that a t-shirt or a hashtag or something. Next up, kind of circling back to spring training here, from Reddit user Doritos22839. What's the impact of Culberson and Robertson over here in spring training? Like, do you think either of them or both make the roster? Do you think either ends up in AAA? Like, where do you see those guys ending up? Because they've been like the veteran camp bats that have been kind of brought into, not I don't want to say like revitalize their careers, but they've got a chance, and they're kind of like helping fill in lineups as needed. So where do you think they end up? What happens with them?
I think Robertson has a shot only because he's kind of fills the same role that Walls does in a team. I think he does a lot of the same things that Walls can do. And so for whatever reason Walls is unavailable, I think he's a really good person to step up into that, that lineup. And you wouldn't have to, if it doesn't work out, you don't have to burn an option like you would with Brujan. You can, you're not really going to sweat if you have to let him go because he's, he might still be out there. Because, and he's played for the Rays before. It'd be fun to see him back. And I'd like to see him in the Devil Ray jersey at some point because he's a player that I associate with like a certain period of Rays, fandom. He's in my brain. So I'd like to see him, and I think he has a shot.
Yeah. I think he definitely has a shot. I feel like he was kind of brought in as like Brujan insurance. It's like what are you going to get from Brujan? Is he ready? If not, stash him in Durham. He's got his extra option year. But if he's like really not ready, you can kind of get 50 to 100 at bats from Robertson, and then until Meade's ready, then just DFA him or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's nice that he gets a chance to showcase himself to the Rays and other teams. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win for everybody. But same with Culberson, like they're higher floor options than what we had last year when everybody started going down and we had to rely on Brujan and Walls. Now we have the choice of like Brujan and Walls. Okay, if that's not working, we have like some 85 WRC plus bats that can go in, and they're not going to be like a 50 WRC plus like whatever Brujan was. So it's insurance. Yeah, I don't really think they're anything that significant though.
It's nice to have a couple more veterans on the team too. There's a lot of youth on this team, which is great, but it's also nice to have some guys who've been around the block a little bit and have a little bit of experience. So I think that's also just a good thing to have in the system.
Yeah, it seems like it can't be bad for the clubhouse. So last question here from Reddit user CD Who Man. He asked, what happens to Patino or whoever ends up winning the 5th starting pitcher spot when Glasnow is healthy? So we got like Fleming, Yanni, Patino. They're all kind of, maybe Criswell is like an outside shot. I don't see it happening, but like we got 3 guys fighting for one spot here. So first of all, what happens to the other 2 when one of them makes the opening day roster? Because one of them is going to have to.
Yeah, and I think the other 2 probably just become, top of the rotation starters in Durham, and they're trying to get them as much, many good reps as they can down there in Durham, because these are guys that you want to see pitching consistently, and you want to see them working on their stuff. I'd be curious to see how they handle sending them down to Durham. Like, what are they telling them when they're going down there? Like, are they saying, hey, we want you to work on, like, you're going to be in Durham. maybe don't worry so much about your results, worry more about working on these things that we want you to work on, whether it's, if it's for Patino, like it's say, hey, let's work on your pitch mix a little bit. Results are, we're not worried about your results necessarily. We just want to get you the reps on your pitch mix a little bit so you can feel comfortable with that. When we bring you back up, you can feel comfortable commanding all those pitches so you can, because you're going to need that to perform, at the major league level. You just need to have those pitches available and, feel comfortable with them. So I'd be curious to see what their approach is handling those pitchers that don't make the roster.
Well, I mean, Cash said Patino is going to be stretched out as a starter. So he's either going to be the 5th starter or the number 1 starter in Durham. Yanni and Fleming, they're a bit more flexible. I think, maybe one of them, I think one could end up as like a relief option and then one goes to Durham, but I don't think we'll get maybe we would get Yanni and Fleming on the opening day roster. It really just depends what happens the next couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting. And then when Glasnow gets back, if and when he gets back, I don't want to count on anything before it actually happens, but easily move some guys to the bullpen, shuffle things around. There's likely going to be another injury by then. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But the thing is, we have to keep this depth. Like we need 7 to 8 starting pitchers for the full season. So they've got their 7 to 8 guys. Glasnow just happens to be the first one banged up. But once he's back, the depth is restored and everything's right in the world.
Yeah. And I think as much as we don't want to talk this way, until Tyler and Shane prove that they can pitch an entire season uninjured, we have to assume that they're going to be injured at some point. So you have to have that depth to replace them. And it's a lot better to replace them with, Yanni Chirinos and Luis Patino than it is whoever is on waivers that week, available that you can just throw in. Like, you don't want to be in that situation. You want to have guys that you're you're preparing, you're getting ready to, perform at a high level. You want to be able to plug those guys in and not just, whoever, is available and you can pull off the street out of a Publix parking lot. You want to be able to really have your top end replacements available.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, there are also going to be like the phantom IL stints. Somebody's going to have left ankle tightness before a start, and they're going to need to get somebody on the taxi squad, especially when they start approaching career high, season high in innings, stuff like that. Yeah. So it's going to be a revolving door, but that's fine. As long as I got the depth, I'm glad I don't have to figure out how to piece all that together, because that seems like so chaotic. So yeah. Anyways, great questions though. These were really awesome. Thank you all for sending those in. Any comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, whatever, you can always tweet at us at RBLR Sports on social media, or any social media thing, not just Twitter. I know I said tweet. We'll talk about whatever. So yeah, cool. Thank you all for sending those in, and we can kind of jump into some standouts from spring training this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was really good to see Margot hit that 3-run home run. That's the thing that's been sticking in my mind the most. I've been thinking about spring training, is because I think he's so undervalued as an outfielder. So seeing that 3-run bomb was awesome. I think he's a big part of the outfield that doesn't get talked about a lot. So I'm just going to keep, holding my stake for Margot, appreciation, because I think he's kind of some glue in our outfield he's been performing at a consistently, above average level and far above average defensively. So he's a guy that I'm always, I always love to see perform well, and I'm just excited to see him keep performing.
Yeah, he's been really impressive now that he's like fully 100% back from his knee thing. Seems like he's a lot more confident in that knee. Really quick first step. Like he looks 100% back to normally before that injury from last year. So excited about him. He's an everyday player. Like, they signed him to a big deal because he's not a platoon outfielder. So he's going to be getting a lot of playing time, and I'm glad the bat's looking ready. Defense has always been strong with him. Don't have to worry about that. Just a great, presence in the lineup too. Like, a lot of guys look up to him, respect him. He's a leader on the team. So yeah, I'm excited about Margot for sure. But yeah, so I kind of had a couple standouts here, and it's really just the guys fighting for that 5th spot. Yeah. All of them are doing their things well. Like Fleming, yesterday looked really great with that new lower release point, throwing the sweeper a lot, that sweeping curveball early in the count for strikes, and then he's just kind of able to mow guys down with that sinker changeup combo. It seems like that's a really nice setup for him. It's working well. Patino got hit around a little bit today, but his stuff was like really good, totally fine. Like it's more random variance today than a bad performance. Really low zone contact rates every time he's out there. High whiff rates, relatively high in the zone whiff rate too. Speeding up his slider, kind of getting all those pitch shapes a little bit closer, but not too close. He's doing what he needs to do. And then Yanni is still the consistent, probably the safest option right now for that fifth spot. So, I mean, he's been kind of up and down. He looked a lot better today. Last time out against like Baltimore or whatever, he got roughed up a bit, but that's going to happen sometimes. His command isn't the best, but he's still like, you're going to, he's not going to have a blow up inning. Like, you're going to get, at least 3 innings if he's in bulk, maybe a little bit more if he's starting. Maybe he gives up a run or two, but he's probably the safest option. So, I mean, everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, and that's awesome. I hope they all stay healthy and they keep battling for that 5th spot.
Yeah, I think that Yanni has probably the most value because we've seen him perform out of the bullpen at a high level as well. I mean, Fleming's done that as well, but I think that Yanni's performing a little bit better. So I think just the value he has really tends to lean in my mind towards him getting that nod to be on the roster, because he could stick around after Glasnow comes back and just shift to the bullpen. I think there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they all have options. So like they're gonna be all up and down, zigzagging all season long. So it's a good problem to have. And another good problem to have is to have too much money. And what better way to spend that money than by going to shop.rblrsports.com, use that promo code FLAPPY, that's FLAPPY, get 10% off everything, not just one thing, everything you order. I bought a blender today, not from shop.rblrsports.com, but I wish they had a promo code so I could have got 10% off my new blender. But that's okay. You can still get 10% off your new shirt by going to shop.rblrsports.com for all of our Tampa Bay team-inspired merchandise. Got to throw in that alliteration. And thank you for your money and your support, but mostly your money.
And your flapping, whatever that means to you.
Yeah, yep, all those flappy parts. Nothing really happening on the injury front before we get into these power rankings, but Sean Armstrong still likely to begin the season on the IL now, so I kind of dropped him off the survey. But speaking of survey, let me share that screen so you all can get a quick rundown of what we're doing here. So share. Cool. I don't want to share these tips again. Let me share another screen. There we go. Perfect. All right. So while Eureka sets that up, I'm going to start stalling here. Not much is changing on the starting pitching side of things. Like everything's pretty steady. We've got McClanahan, Springs, Rasmussen, Eflin. Patino's kind of sitting in that 5th spot right now, but Yanni's pretty close. Fleming not too far behind, but that's definitely the spot to watch there. Bullpen, a little bit of shuffling, but it's still going to be Fairbanks, Adam Clevenger, Beeks, Poche. Thompson's getting some love, which is interesting. Kevin Kelly, he's been getting some love as like that Rule 5 thing, but then Trevor Kelly was added to the roster, so I think he's going to start seeing a little bit of a rise soon, just because he's literally on the roster. And like I mean, like that's better than what Ben Heller can say as a non-roster invite. Same with Kyle Crick. So, just pay attention to this 7 through 10 spot here. That's really the main thing. Catchers, there's nothing to say there. Nothing is moving. Infielders, we've got Wander, Yandy, Brandon Lau, Paredes. Walls is holding on to that 5 spot over Aranda and Brujan. So I think maybe like 5 or 6 make the roster, but with Harold as kind of the DH, I'd be leaning towards 5 and then snapping it off at Walls there, and then the rest are either in Durham or with another organization. So hard to say. Any thoughts on the infield here before we wrap it up with the outfield?
Yeah, not really. I think Aranda is he was fine in the WBC, nothing like amazing, nothing like bad, but it's like I don't know that because he's, unfortunately, until he improves on defense, you kind of have to be hitting so well you don't give us an option, and he's not doing that, at least right now. So I think he's going to have to hit himself back onto the roster.
Yeah, it's not really his fault. Like it's really just a
No.
fit thing. But I
Yeah.
think that he can earn a spot. I think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Lastly here, this is a pretty established group now with Randy, Margot, Siri, Josh Lowe, Harold is ahead of Luke Rayleigh, which doesn't make sense to me, but like that's fine because the top 6 probably make it just because of that kind of DH thing with Harold and Rayleigh going on. So
Yeah.
really though, like Harold Ramirez he's probably been one of the worst, if not the worst, Rays players in spring training. Like, I'm so sorry to say that. Like, and if you're listening, Harold, I'm sorry, but like, dude, like this is the fans made the wrong choice here. Like, that's not correct. Luke Rayleigh has been crushing all spring in every facet of the game, and you're telling me Harold is above him? Like, that's not how that works.
No, they got it. They improved by getting Margot up to number 2. Like that was good, but they just they're just not sure what happened that we ended up with Ramirez over Rayleigh there.
Yeah, maybe somebody fat fingered it a bit. I don't know.
Possible.
But yeah, who knows? That's our power rankings though. So thank you all for submitting those. I'll continue to like put out that survey on Twitter, Reddit, all that good stuff. Any miscellaneous news other than the Walls swing change and guys trickling back from the WBC?
Don't think so. My last note on WBC is I was very surprised that the Dominican Republic got knocked out as quickly as they did. That was the one thing that I was shocked that they, got knocked out that quickly. I thought for sure they were going to beat Puerto Rico and move on, but I mean, awesome for Puerto Rico, but I was shocked. Like it's just a great example of how you can, you can't just throw all the best players on a team and, have them win because that's not really how baseball works. Like it has to be a fit. Not saying that they weren't well constructed, but like just putting the best, 9 dudes in baseball out on the field does not automatically guarantee a win. It's just that's baseball.
Well, and what they played like 4 games.
Yeah.
Like that's like at most you're getting maybe if you're playing every game, like you're getting maybe 15 at bats. Anybody can beat anybody in 15 at bats. So that's what makes the World Baseball Classic so exciting, though. Small samples, guys performing, guys not performing. It's fun. So, I hope you all enjoyed our performance here, though, with our RBLR Rays show. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, sharing, giving us money. I got some blood transfusions a little while ago, so maybe you can donate us some blood. Who knows? Or I don't know, figure something out. Just give your time, give your resources.
Sharing is caring.
Give your thoughts and ideas. Sharing is caring. Give us 5-star reviews on everything, and give the Rays your support too. So go Rays.
Rays up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.